Hello, baby girl. I decided to record you some stories so that way you can have something from when Daddy's not available. This is the Prydain Chronicles, and I do have a picture of the map so you can get an idea of what the land looks like. That's coming up on the next page. So I'm going to read you the author's note first. This chronicle of the land of Prydain is not a retelling or retranslation of Welsh mythology. Prydain is not Wales, not entirely, at least. The inspiration for it comes from the magnificent land and its legends, but essentially, Prydain is a country existing only in the imagination. A few of its inhabitants are drawn from the ancient tales. Gwydion, for example, is a real legendary figure. Aran, the Lord Dread of Anuvan, comes from the Monogogion, the classic collection of Welsh legends, though in Prydain he is considerably more villainous. And there is an authentic mythological basis for Aran's cauldron, Henwen the oracular pig, the old enchanter Dalben, and others. However, Taran, the assistant pig keeper, like Eilenwy of the red gold hair, was born in my own Prydain. The geography of Prydain is peculiar to itself. Any resemblance between it and Wales is perhaps not coincidental, but not to be used as a guide for tourists. It is a small land, yet it is room enough for gallantry and humor, and even assistant pig keeper that may cherish certain dreams. The Chronicle of Prydain is a fantasy. Such things never happen in real life. Or do they? Most of us are called on to perform tasks far beyond what we are believing that we can do, and our capabilities seldom match our aspirations, and we are often woefully unprepared. To this extent, we are all assistant pig keepers at heart. Okay, here is the map. Hopefully you can see that. Alright, baby, here we go. Chapter 1, The Assistant Pig Keeper. Taran wanted to make a sword, but Cole, charged with the practical side of his education, decided on horseshoes. And so it had been horseshoes all morning long. Taran's arms ached, soot blackened his face. At last he dropped the hammer and turned to Cole, who watched him critically. "Why?" Taran cried. "Why must it be horseshoes, as if we even had any horses?" Cole was stout and round, and his great bald head glowed bright pink. "Lucky for the horses," was all said, glancing at Taran's handiwork. "I could do better making a sword," Taran protested. "I know I could." And before Cole could answer, he snatched the tongs, flung a strip of red-hot iron to the anvil, and began hammering away as fast as he could. "Wait, wait!" cried Cole. "That's not the way to go after it." Heedless of Cole, unable to even hear him above the din, Taran pounded harder than ever. Sparks sprayed into the air. But the more he pounded, the more the metal twisted and buckled, until finally the iron sprang from the tongs and fell to the ground. Taran stared in dismay. With the tongs he picked up the bent iron and examined it. "Not quite the blade for a hero," Cole remarked. "It's ruined," Taran glumly agreed. "It looks like a sick snake," he added ruefully. "As I tried telling you," said Cole, "you had it all wrong. You must hold the tongs just so, and when you strike, your strength must flow from your shoulder and your wrist and be loose. You can hear it when you do it right. There is a kind of music in it. Besides," he added, "this is not the kind of metal for weapons." Cole returned the crooked, half-formed blade to the furnace, where it lost its shape entirely. "I wish I had my own sword," Taran sighed, "and you would teach me sword fighting." "Wish?" cried Cole. "Why would you wish to know that? We have no battles here in Caer Dalben." "We have no horses either," objected Taran, "but we're making horseshoes, aren't we?" "Get on with you," said Cole, unmoved. "This is for practice, and so this would be," Taran urged. "Come on, teach me the sword fighting. You must know the art." Cole's shining head glowed even brighter. A trace of a smile appeared on his face as though he were savoring something pleasant. "True," he said quietly. "I have held a sword once or twice in my day." "Teach me now," pleaded Taran. He seized a poker and brandished it, slashing at the air, dancing back and forth over the hard-packed earthen floor. "See," he called, "I know most of it already." Hold your hand, chuckled Cole. If you were to come at me like that, with all your pousing and bouncing around, I should have chopped you into bits by this time. He hesitated a moment. Look at you, he said quickly. At least you should know there is a right way and a wrong way to go about it. He picked up another poker. Here now, he ordered, with a sooty wink. Stand like a man. Taran brought up his poker while Cole shouted instructions. They set to parrying and thrusting with much banging and clanging and commotion. And for a moment Taran was sure he had the better of Cole. But the old man spun away with amazing lightness of foot. Now it was Taran who strove desperately to ward off Cole's blows. Abruptly Cole stopped. So did Taran, his poker poised in midair. The doorway of the forge stood tall, bent-figured Dalbin. Dalbin, master of Caer Dalbin, was 379 years old. His beard covered so much of his face, he seemed to always be peering over a gray cloud. On the little farm, while Taran and Cole saw to the plowing, sowing, weeding, reaping, and all the other tasks of husbandry, Dalbin undertook the meditating, an occupation so exhausting he could accomplish it only by lying down and closing his eyes. He meditated an hour and a half following breakfast, and again later in the day. The clatter from the forge had roused him from his morning meditation. His robe hung askew over his bony knees. "Stop that nonsense directly," said Dalbin. "I am surprised at you," he added, frowning at Cole. "There is serious work to be done." "It wasn't Cole," Taran interrupted. "It was I who asked to learn the swordplay." "I did not say I was surprised at you," remarked Dalbin, "but perhaps I am. After all, I think you had best come with me." Taran followed the ancient man out of the forge, across the chicken run, and into the white thatched cottage. There, in Dalbin's chamber, mouldering tomes overflowed the sagging shelves, and spilled onto the floor amid heaps of iron cookpots, studded belts, harps with or without strings, and other oddments. Taran took his place on the wooden bench, as he always did when Dalbin was in a mood for giving lectures or reprimands. "I fully understand," said Dalbin, settling himself behind the table. "In the use of weapons, as in everything else, there is a certain skill. But wiser heads than yours will determine when you should learn it." "I'm sorry," Dalbin began. "I should not have—" "I'm not angry," Dalbin said, raising a hand. "Only a little sad. Time flies quickly. Things always happen sooner than one expects. And yet," he murmured, almost to himself, "it troubles me. I fear the Horned King may have some part in this." "The Horned King?" asked Taran. "We shall speak of him later," said Dalbin. He drew a ponderous, leather-bound tome volume towards him, the Book of Three, from which he occasionally read to Taran, and which, the boy believed, held in its pages everything anyone could possibly want to know. "As I've explained to you before," Dalbin went on, "and you have very likely forgotten, Prydain is a land of many cantrevs and small kingdoms, and many kings, and of course, their war leaders who command the warriors. But there is the High King above them all," said Taran, "Math, son of Mathwen. His war leader is the mightiest hero in Prydain. You told me of him, Prince Gwydion." "Yes," Taran went on eagerly, "I know." "There are other things that you do not know," Dalbin said, "for the obvious reason that I have not yet told you. For the moment I am less concerned with the realms of the living than with the land of the dead and of Annuvin." Taran shuddered at that word. Even Dalbin had spoken only of it in a whisper. "And when King Aran, lord of Annuvin," Dalbin said, "knows this," he continued quickly, "Annuvin is more than just a land of death. It is a treasure house not only of gold and jewels, but of all things of advantage to men. Long ago the race of men owned all of these treasures, and by craft and deceit Aran has stolen them one by one for his own evil uses. Some few treasures have been wrested from him, though most lie hidden deep within Annuvin, where Aran guards them jealously. But Aran did not become ruler of Prydain," Taran said. "You may be thankful he did not," said Dalbin. "He would have ruled it had it not been for the children of Dawn, the sons of the Lady Dawn and her consort Belen, king of the sun. Long ago they voyaged to Prydain from the summer country, and found the land rich and fair, though the race of men had little for themselves. The sons of Dawn built their stronghold at Caer Dathel, far north in the Eagle Mountains. From there they helped regain at least a portion of what Iran had stolen, and stood as guardians against the lurking threat of Anuvan. I hate to think what would have happened if the sons of Dawn had not come, Terran said. It was good destiny that had brought them. I am not always so sure, said Dalban with a wry smile. The men of Prydain have come to rely on the strength of the House of Dawn, as a child clings to its mother. They do so even to this day. Math, the High King, is descended from the House of Dawn. So is Prince Gwydion. But that is all by the way. Prydain has been at peace, as much as men can be peaceful until now. What you do not know, Dalban said, is that it has reached my ears that a new and mighty warlord has risen, as powerful as Gwydion, some say even more powerful. But he is a man of evil, for whom death is a black joy. He sports with death as though one might sport with a dog. Who is he? Cried Terran. Dalban shook his head. No man actually knows his name, nor has any man seen his face. He wears an antlered mask, and for this reason he is called the Horned King. His purposes I do not yet know. I suspect the hand of Iran, but in what manner I cannot tell. I tell you now only for your own protection, Dalban added. From what I saw this morning, your head is full of nonsense about feats of arms. Whatever notions you may have, I advise you to forget them immediately. There is unknown danger abroad, and you can barely be on the threshold of manhood, and I have certainly a responsibility to see that you reach it, preferably with a whole skin. So, you are not to leave Caer Dalban under any circumstances, not even past the orchard, and certainly not into the forest, not for the time being. For the time being, Terran burst out. I think it will always be for the time being, and it will be vegetables and horseshoes for my whole life. Tut, said Dalban. There are worse things. Do you set yourself to be a glorious hero? Do you believe it all flashing swords and galloping about on horses? As for being glorious, well, what of Prince Gwydion? Cried Terran. Yes, I do wish to be like him. I fear, Dalban said, that is entirely out of the question. But why? Terran sprang to his feet. I know if I just had the chance. Why? Dalban interrupted. In some cases, he said, we learn more by looking for the answer to a question and not finding it than we do from learning the answer itself. This is one of those cases. I could tell you why, but at the moment it would only be more confusing. If you grow up with any kind of sense, which you sometimes make me doubt, you will very likely reach your very own conclusions. They will probably be wrong, he added, however, since they will be yours, and you will feel a little more satisfied with them. Terran sank back and sat gloomy and silent on the bench. Dalban had already begun meditating again. His chin gradually came to rest on his collarbone. His beard floated around his ears like a fog bank, and he began snoring peacefully. The spring scent of apple blossoms drifted through the open windows. Beyond Dalban's chamber, Terran glimpsed the pale green fringe of forest. The fields, ready to cultivate, would soon turn golden with summer. The Book of Three lay closed on the table. Terran had never been allowed to read the volume for himself. Now he was sure it held more than Dalban had even chose to tell him. In the sun-filled room, with Dalban still meditating and showing no sign of stopping, Terran rose and moved through the shimmering beams. From the forest came the monotone tick of a beetle. His hands reached for the cover. Terran grasped in pain and snatched them away. They smarted as if his fingers had been stung by hornets. He jumped back, stumbled against the bench, and dropped to the floor, where he put his fingers woefully into his mouth. Dalban's eyes blinked open. He peered at Terran and yawned slowly. You had better see Cole about a lotion for those hands, he advised. Otherwise I shouldn't be surprised if they blister. Fingers smarting, the shamefaced Terran hurried from the cottage and found Cole near the vegetable garden. You've been at the Book of Three, Cole said. That is not hard to guess. Now you better not. Well, that is one of the three foundations of learning. See much, study much, suffer much. He led Terran to the stable where medicines for the livestock were kept. He poured a concoction over Terran's fingers. What is the use of studying much when I see nothing at all? Terran retorted. I think there is a destiny laid on me that I am not to know anything interesting, go anywhere interesting, or do anything interesting. I'm certainly not to be anything. I'm not to be anything even at Caer Dalban. Very well, said Cole. If that is all that troubles you, I shall make you something. From this moment, you are Terran, assistant pig keeper. You shall help me take care of Henwen, see her trough is full, carry her water, and give her a good scrubbing every other day. But that's what I already do now, Terran said bitterly. All the better, said Cole, for it makes things that much easier. If you want something to be having a name attached to it, I can't think of anything closer at hand. And it is not every lad that can be an assistant pig keeper to an oracular pig. Indeed, she is the only oracular pig in all of Prydain, and most valuable because of that. Valuable to Dalben, Terran said. She never tells me anything. Did you think that she would? Replied Cole. With Henwen, you must know how to ask. Here, what was that? Cole shaded his eyes with a hand. A black buzzing cloud streaked from the orchard and bore on so rapidly and passed so close to Cole's head that he had to leap out of its way. The bees, Terran shouted. They're swarming. It's not even their time, said Cole. There must be something amiss. The cloud rose high towards the sun. An instant later, Terran heard a loud clucking and squawking from the chicken run. He turned to see that 5 hens and the rooster beating their wings, before it occurred to him that they were attempting to fly, and they too were aloft. Terran and Cole raced to the chicken run, but too late to catch the chickens. With the rooster leading, the chickens flapped awkwardly into the air and disappeared over the brow of a hill. From the stable, the pair of oxen bellowed and rolled their eyes in terror. Dalben's head poked out of the windows. He looked irritated. It had become absolutely impossible for any kind of meditation whatsoever, he said with a severe glance at Terran. I warned you once. Something has frightened the animals, Terran protested. First the bees, then the chickens flew off. Dalben's face turned very grave. I have been given no knowledge of this, he said to Cole. We must ask Henwen about it immediately, and we shall also need the letter sticks. Quickly, help me find them. Cole moved hastily to the cottage door. Watch Henwen closely, he ordered Terran. Do not let her out of your sight. Cole disappeared into the cottage to search for Henwen's letter sticks. The long rods of ash wood carved with spells. Terran was both frightened and excited. Dalben, he knew, would consult with Henwen only on a matter of greatest urgency. Within Terran's memory it had never happened before. He hurried to the pen. Henwen usually slept until noon. Then, trotting daintily despite her size, she would have moved to a shady quarter of her enclosure and settled comfortably to rest for the rest of the day. The white pig was continually grunting and chuckling to herself, and whenever she saw Terran, she would raise her wide, cheeky face so that he could scratch her under the chin. But this time she paid no attention to him. Wheezing and whistling, Henwen was digging furiously into the soft earth at the far side of her pen, burrowing so rapidly she would soon be out. Terran shouted at her, but the clods continued flying at a great pace. He swung himself over the fence. The oracular pig stopped and glanced around. As Terran approached her hole, already sizable, Henwen hurried to the opposite side of the pen and started a new excavation. Terran was strong and long-legged, but to his dismay, he saw that Henwen moved much faster than he did. As soon as he chased her from the second hole, he turned quickly on short legs and made for the first. But by now, they were both big enough for head and shoulders. Terran frantically began scraping the earth back into the hole. Henwen dug faster than a badger. Her hind legs planted firmly, her front legs plowing ahead. Terran despaired of stopping her. He scrambled back over the rails and jumped onto the spot where Henwen was about to emerge, planning to seize her and hang on until Dalben and Cole arrived. He underestimated Henwen's speed and her strength, however. In an explosion of dirt and pebbles, the pig burst from under the fence, heaving Terran into the air. He landed with the wind knocked out of him. Henwen raced across the field and into the woods. Terran followed. Ahead the forest rose up, dark and threatening. He took a breath and plunged into the forest after her.